Captain Arik Vale's hands shook slightly as he gripped the controls of his fighter. The sky above Vatra 9 was a storm of fire and chaos. Explosions bloomed like deadly flowers around him, and the air was filled with the whine of engines and the crackle of energy weapons. Humanity was on the edge. The Zetherians, a race of alien warriors, had come in overwhelming numbers, and this small human squadron was the only thing standing between them and the planet's capital. Arik glanced at his squadron on the display. Only 2 of the 4 fighters remained operational. "Stay tight, people. Don't let them break formation," he spoke into his headset. His voice was calm, even though his heart was pounding. He had fought many battles before, but this one felt different. Something about the Zetherians' approach made him uneasy, as if they knew every move he and his squadron would make before they even made it. "Arik, I'm hit," shouted Lieutenant Mara Kane, one of his closest friends and allies. Her voice was tense, panicked. On the display, her fighter spun uncontrollably as a bright beam of energy struck her ship. "I can't." The transmission cut off. Arik's stomach sank. He had to make a choice. Stay with Mara and risk being destroyed himself, or continue fighting to protect the larger formation. His decision was made in a heartbeat. "Hold the line. I'll cover you," he yelled, pushing his fighter into a steep climb and heading toward the incoming Zetherian cruiser. The alien ship was massive, its hull glowing with strange energy patterns that Arik had never seen before. Even from a distance it radiated power. Arik's sensors screamed warnings as dozens of smaller Zetherian fighters swarmed around him, forcing him to weave through the air like a dancer in a deadly ballet. He fired his weapons, but every hit seemed absorbed by some invisible shield. Then, a sudden bright pulse of energy erupted from the cruiser. Arik tried to dodge, but the force slammed into his fighter. Alarms blared, the cockpit filled with smoke, and warning lights flashed red. His ship spun wildly before stabilizing just enough for him to eject. The cold air of Vatra 9 hit him as he floated down, the wind biting against his suit. He tried to pull himself together, scanning for any signs of the Zetherians. A shadow passed over him. He looked up and saw a massive craft descending from the sky. Its design was alien, sleek yet intimidating, and before he could react, a beam of energy lifted him from the ground and pulled him toward the ship. Inside the vessel, he found himself in a wide chamber that smelled faintly of ozone and metal. The walls were smooth, glowing with a soft blue light. He was not alone. Other humans in ragged uniforms and beaten expressions were lined up along one side of the room. Some stared blankly at the ground. Others whispered in fear. And then, he saw her. The Zetherian who had captured him stepped forward. She was taller than any human, with smooth, iridescent skin that shifted colors subtly as she moved. Her eyes glowed faintly like amber lanterns, but they held intelligence and curiosity rather than the pure hatred he had expected. Her presence was commanding, almost regal, and yet there was something about her that made Arik uneasy. "You are Captain Arik Vale," she said in a voice that was calm, melodic, and precise. It carried an authority that made every muscle in his body tense. "Your reputation precedes you." Arik straightened, trying to maintain his composure. "I am. And you are?" "I am Saraya, commander of this vessel," she replied. She circled him slowly, inspecting him with the careful gaze of someone studying an interesting specimen. "You humans are unpredictable. Your courage is unusual, yet so is your recklessness." Arik met her gaze without flinching. "And yet here I am, alive. Does that make me lucky?" Saraya tilted her head, a faint smile brushing her lips. "Or perhaps useful." He realized then that he was not being immediately executed. That alone was a strange relief. He also understood that this Zetherian was not like the others he had heard about. Most Zetherians he had encountered in reports were merciless, relentless, and utterly devoted to conquest. Saraya seemed different. Calculating, yes, but curious. She gestured to a nearby platform. "You will stay there," she said, and the platform lifted him into a smaller chamber with clear walls. From there he could see the main room, the other prisoners, and even part of the ship's bridge far above. He was alone with his thoughts, his mind racing to understand how he had gone from the battlefield to this strange alien ship. Hours passed. Arik watched silently as Etherians moved with precision, their every action purposeful and efficient. They spoke a language he could not understand, yet the rhythm of their speech was hypnotic. And yet, despite their power, he felt a spark of hope. Humans had survived impossible odds before. They could survive this. Then Saraya returned. This time she did not circle him. She simply stood before him, hands behind her back. "You carry something," she said, her eyes fixed on his chest. Arik looked down and saw the faint glint of his necklace, a small heirloom passed down through generations of his family. It was a simple chain with a round pendant, etched with symbols of humanity's early exploration missions, symbols of peace, diplomacy, and hope. "I carry nothing but memories," Arik said carefully. Saraya's eyes widened slightly and she reached out, examining the necklace more closely. Her touch was gentle, almost reverent, as if the small object held a power far greater than its size. This is very old. Human, yes? You are aware of its meaning?" Arik nodded. "It belonged to my great-grandfather. He was one of the first humans to travel beyond our solar system. This symbol, it was meant to show we could be trusted, that we sought peace, not conquest." Saraya's gaze softened, and Arik noticed her posture change slightly. The air in the chamber felt different now, lighter somehow. "Your people have been misjudged," she said slowly. "Perhaps war was not necessary." The word struck Arik like a shockwave. Could this one alien, this commander, actually see humans differently because of a simple necklace? Could something so small change the course of a war that had seemed inevitable? He stayed silent, letting her process the information. He knew better than to push too soon. In war, patience was a weapon just as sharp as any blade. Saraya turned and left the chamber, but this time she did not lock the door. The gesture was small, but it spoke volumes. Arik sat back against the wall, the necklace warm against his chest. He thought of his squadron, of Mara, and of all the human lives now in the hands of the Zetherians. Somehow, he had to turn this moment into an opportunity. Somehow, he had to show Saraya and the Zetherians that humans were more than their reputation. Outside the chamber, the hum of the ship continued. The Zetherians moved in patterns that seemed perfect, calculated, unstoppable. But Arik's mind was alive with plans, possibilities, and hope. Humanity had survived countless challenges, and he was not about to let this alien war be the end. The first day of captivity ended with no threats, no violence, only observation. Yet Arik knew that tomorrow could bring danger, interrogation, or worse. Still, he held onto the small symbol of his heritage, the necklace. It was a reminder that sometimes the smallest things could change the course of history, and in the silent hum of the Zetherian ship, a human captain began to prepare for a battle of a different kind, the battle for understanding, for trust, and perhaps for peace. Arik closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and whispered to himself, "We survive, we adapt, and we show them what humanity truly is." Captain Arik Vale woke to the soft hum of the Zetherian ship surrounding him. Light filtered through the clear walls of his chamber, casting strange, shifting patterns across the floor. Despite the calm exterior, his mind raced. He had survived capture, but survival now required more than courage. It required patience, observation, and a careful understanding of the alien who had brought him here, Commander Saraya. When the door opened, Arik stiffened instinctively, expecting guards or interrogation, but it was only her. Saraya stepped in, her tall form gliding silently across the floor. Her skin shimmered in subtle shades of green and silver, and her amber eyes seemed to pierce directly into his thoughts. She carried no weapon, yet Arik felt every muscle in his body alert, ready to react. "You are awake," she said simply, her voice calm and even. Arik nodded. Yes, and you are here. To talk, I assume. Saraya tilted her head, examining him. Carefully. Observation. Understanding. You humans are unpredictable. Your behavior does not always match your reputation. That is intriguing. Arik frowned. Unpredictable, huh? That's one way to describe humanity. She took a step closer, her gaze lingering on the small necklace around his neck. Even though she had already noticed it yesterday, her interest seemed sharper today. This symbol, it is more significant than you realize. Arik touched the pendant reflexively. It belonged to my great-grandfather. He was part of humanity's first peace missions to the stars. It is a symbol of trust, of diplomacy, not war. Siraya's expression softened slightly. Peace, trust. These concepts are rare among the species I encounter. Yet here, in this object, I see something ancient, something lost. She paused, studying him. Tell me about your ancestors. What made them worthy of carrying such a symbol? Arik leaned back, trying to stay calm under her piercing gaze. He had learned early that Zytherians respected honesty, logic, and courage. They believed in more than conquest, he said. They believed that humans could reach beyond themselves, that our strength wasn't only in weapons but in knowledge, cooperation, and understanding. This necklace is their promise, their reminder. Saraya listened quietly, absorbing every word. Then she asked something unexpected. And you? Do you share their belief? Arik met her eyes directly. I do. Even now. Even after all we've faced. Even after your people attacked Vetra 9. We humans survive because we adapt, because we reach out even when others strike first. That is what makes us different. For a moment, the chamber was silent. Outside, Arik could see the other prisoners, their eyes wide with caution and fear, yet they seemed calmer knowing he was nearby. Perhaps they sensed that he could influence the alien commander. Saraya spoke finally, her voice quieter than before. I am curious. Humans are small in number compared to our species, yet you fight with courage and with spirit. Tell me, Captain, how do you maintain hope in such hopeless circumstances? Arik smiled faintly. Hope isn't about numbers or weapons. It's about knowing that even one person can make a difference, that even in the darkest moments action matters. Courage and reason together can change outcomes. That's what keeps me going. Saraya tilted her head again, her expression unreadable. You are different from the reports we receive. Your kind is said to be reckless, violent, primitive. Yet you speak of reason, diplomacy, and courage. Perhaps we have misjudged humanity. Arik sensed an opportunity. Misjudged? You mean the Zytherians believe humans are only aggressive? She nodded slowly. Yes, and yet this symbol of your people's history, it contradicts that belief. It proves humans have sought cooperation before, even with species more powerful than themselves. The necklace felt heavier against his chest as Arik realized its importance. Not just a family heirloom, but a bridge between two species. Then maybe it doesn't have to be too late. Maybe war isn't inevitable. Saraya studied him, and for the first time, Arik thought he saw vulnerability in her expression. You speak as though the past can guide the present, she said. Yet my people view history differently. We see weakness where humans see hope. Arik leaned forward, lowering his voice slightly. Hope is not weakness. Trust is not weakness. Humans survive because we believe in both, even when others doubt us. That is what makes us dangerous to conquerors and valuable to allies. Saraya considered his words carefully. Then she turned and walked toward the window of his chamber, looking out at the alien fleet beyond. Your words are unusual. Your courage, even more so. Perhaps there is more to your species than we understood. The rest of the day passed with more observation and conversation. Saraya returned several times, each visit longer than the last. Arik learned about her, carefully controlled routines, the precision of Zitherian culture and their dedication to hierarchy and duty. He began to see cracks in the rigid image of her people, the curiosity in Saraya's questions, the hesitation in her orders, the small moments of consideration for prisoners that other Zitherians ignored. During one conversation, she asked about human families, their traditions, and their history. Arik spoke of Earth, of the generations who had explored the stars, of the alliances humans had tried to build with distant species. He told her about the earliest missions beyond the solar system, the promise of peace carried in small symbols, like his necklace. Saraya listened intently. "It is strange," she admitted, "to see that a species so small and limited can hold ideas so powerful. Symbols, memory, honor, these are not found easily among conquerors." Arik smiled, sensing an opening. "Sometimes the smallest things carry the greatest weight. You see this necklace and recognize the value of our history. Maybe you could recognize the value of our people too." Her amber eyes softened and she reached out, touching the necklace again, her touch gentle but deliberate. "You humans have more depth than I imagined. Perhaps war is not the only path forward. Perhaps we could learn from each other." Arik felt a surge of hope. It was dangerous to trust, but he had no other choice. If he could plant even a seed of understanding in Saraya's mind, perhaps he could influence her decisions, protect his people, and even stop the war before it consumed them all. Days passed in a similar rhythm. Arik observed the ship, studied Zitherian movements and learned their patterns. Saraya continued to engage him, asking questions, listening, and even showing small hints of humor. They discussed strategy, science, and history. Arik noticed that her curiosity grew, and with it, a subtle respect. One evening, Saraya approached with something unexpected, a datapad containing information about the Zitherian fleet, their schedules, and some of their internal communications. "I am not yet ready to defy my people fully," she said, "but I am curious about the humans who survive despite everything. Your people." Arik studied the datapad quickly. Knowledge of their movements and schedules could save countless human lives. "Why are you showing me this?" he asked cautiously. "Because I wish to understand," Saraya said simply. "Perhaps if I understand, I will see a different future." "Perhaps your kind is not what my people think it is." The gesture shocked him. It was unprecedented. And yet Arik understood that trust, even small trust, was beginning to grow. He had to be careful, but he also had a chance to make a difference. As he returned to his chamber, Arik looked down at the necklace resting against his chest. It was more than a chain of metal. It was a symbol, a reminder of humanity's potential, and a key to bridging the gap between two worlds. He thought of the human prisoners he had seen earlier, of Mara Kane and the squadron he had lost contact with, of Earth waiting for news. The war was far from over, but for the first time he believed that perhaps it did not have to end in destruction. And in the quiet hum of the Zitherian vessel, a human captain began to plan not just for survival, but for understanding. The days ahead would test him, test Saraya, and test the limits of trust and courage. Yet Arik knew one thing with certainty. If humanity's spirit could shine even here, in the heart of enemy territory, then hope could exist anywhere. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but for now Arik allowed himself a small moment of relief. He was still alive. He was still human. And with every conversation, every observation, he was planting the seeds of something greater than war, a chance for peace. Even as the stars passed silently outside the ship, Arik whispered to himself, "We survive. We adapt. We show them who we truly are." And somewhere across the chamber, Saraya considered the possibility that this one human, fragile yet unbroken, could change the course of history for both their peoples. Captain Arik Vale had begun to understand something crucial about Commander Saraya. She was not like the other Zitherians. Her curiosity, her questions, and her willingness to listen made him realize that she might be more than a captor. She could become a bridge between two species. Yet he also understood the danger. Any misstep could end not only his life but the fragile trust that had begun to grow between them. That morning, Saraya entered his chamber with a serious expression. Her movements were deliberate, precise, and there was a tension in her posture that Auric had not seen before. She carried no weapons, but the authority in her presence made him sit upright immediately. "You have shown courage, Captain," she said, her voice measured, "and you have answered my questions with honesty. For that, you have earned a degree of my attention." Auric nodded, keeping his tone calm. "I'm glad you trust me, Commander. I've seen how your people fight. I know the cost of war. If there's a way to avoid unnecessary bloodshed, I want to find it." Siraya's amber eyes softened briefly as she looked at the small pendant on his chest. "This symbol, your necklace. Its origin is not known to most Zetherians. Yet it appears in records older than any surviving fleet logs. It is mentioned in the Chronicles of the Zetherian Council as a symbol of peace, long forgotten." Auric's heart quickened. "Peace? You mean the humans who first explored space were once recognized by your people?" "Yes," Saraya said quietly. "Your ancestors brought a message of cooperation to distant worlds. They carried knowledge and symbols meant to show that humans could be allies, not enemies. But over time, that history was lost. Humanity became known only as a warrior species. The necklace, it proves otherwise." Auric ran a hand over the pendant, feeling its weight. For generations, his family had guarded it, telling stories of the humans who had once traveled beyond the solar system with hope and diplomacy. And now, it seemed, that small symbol could change everything. "You mean my great-grandfather's mission? It actually mattered?" he asked, a mixture of awe and disbelief in his voice. Saraya nodded. "It did, and it still can. But you must understand, Captain, that showing this to me alone will not change the course of the war. The other commanders, the Council, they will not accept this easily. They see humans only as threats. They will resist anything that suggests cooperation." Auric took a deep breath. "Then we must show them that humans are more than their reputation, that we can be trusted, that we can work together." Saraya considered this. "It is risky. If I act too quickly, my people will see me as a traitor. But if I do nothing, your kind will be destroyed, or worse, enslaved. Perhaps you are correct. Perhaps there is another way." For the first time, Auric saw a flicker of uncertainty in her normally controlled expression. "There is always another way," he said gently. "You've seen me, Commander. You've seen how we humans survive, adapt and fight when necessary. We can do more than destroy. We can build. And so can you." She studied him for a long moment and then finally spoke. "Your words resonate with what I have studied about your species. I have been raised to see humans as inferior, aggressive, unpredictable. Yet, here, in you, I see the truth of your kind. Resourceful, clever, and resilient. Perhaps we have judged your people too harshly." Auric allowed himself a small, cautious smile. "It is not easy to earn trust, Commander. But it is possible. And it is worth the effort." Saraya paced slowly across the chamber, her mind clearly racing. "The Council will not accept this. They will demand proof. Evidence that your species is worthy of trust. Perhaps the pendant is proof enough. Perhaps it is a starting point. But it will take more than one human's courage to change the minds of an entire species." Auric nodded. "I understand. And I am willing to help. Whatever it takes, I will show your people that humans can be allies, not enemies. That is my mission now." Saraya stopped and looked directly at him. "Your mission is not simple, Captain. But it may succeed where others have failed. If we work together carefully, we might prevent the destruction of both our peoples. Perhaps your ancestors' message was never truly lost. Perhaps it has returned at the right time." Auric felt a surge of hope. The necklace, small and unassuming, had become a beacon of possibility. Then let's begin, he said firmly. Tell me what I need to do. Saraya nodded, a hint of determination appearing in her eyes. You must teach me about your species, their values, their ways, their history. And in turn, I will teach you about mine. Knowledge is power, and understanding is the only weapon capable of ending this war without further bloodshed. Over the following days, Arik and Saraya spent long hours together. He recounted the history of humanity's space exploration, the early missions of diplomacy, and the lessons learned through centuries of survival. She listened intently, asking questions that revealed her sharp intellect and her willingness to reconsider long-held beliefs. In return, Saraya shared Zetherian history, culture, and strategy, carefully, selectively, without revealing the vulnerabilities of her people. Arik observed her closely, noting how she balanced loyalty to her species with her growing curiosity about humanity. Each conversation deepened their understanding of one another. Each exchange built trust, fragile but real. Then came a day when Saraya took a bold step. She accessed hidden archives aboard her ship and revealed the original Zetherian Council, records that mentioned humanity. The texts were ancient, filled with symbols and language that Arik struggled to read, yet their meaning was clear. Humans had once been acknowledged as capable of wisdom and cooperation. This is real, Arik said quietly. This could show your council that humanity is not a threat. Saraya nodded. Yes, but only if presented correctly. If misinterpreted, it could provoke suspicion. You must understand, Captain. The council values strength above all else. They see diplomacy as weakness. You must be careful. Arik understood. Patience, careful reasoning, and the right timing would be essential. The necklace had brought attention to humanity's legacy, but now they had to prove its relevance in the present. One evening, as they continued their discussions, Arik noticed a shift in Saraya. She seemed less rigid, more willing to question assumptions. Why do you care so much about humans? He asked cautiously. Her gaze softened. Because you are not like the stories say. And because perhaps I see the possibility of something better. A future where our peoples do not destroy each other. Arik smiled faintly. That is all I hope for. That is all any human hopes for. As the days passed, Arik also began to observe subtle changes in the ship's operations. Saraya was careful to act within her authority, but small adjustments suggested she was already thinking of ways to protect human prisoners, prevent unnecessary attacks, and gain influence over her peers. Arik realized that the necklace, the conversations, and their growing trust were creating ripples that might one day reach the council itself. But danger was never far. Arik knew that Zetherians were formidable, and that Saraya's willingness to listen could easily be viewed as weakness by others. One wrong move, one misinterpreted action, could undo all progress. Yet he also knew that hope was a weapon, and courage a shield. Together they might have a chance to prevent the war from consuming both their worlds. That night, as the ship hummed quietly through space, Arik held the necklace and thought of humanity's long journey. From Earth to the stars, humans had carried ideals of exploration, courage, and diplomacy. And now, far from their home in the hands of a potential ally rather than an enemy, that legacy had a chance to shine once more. He whispered to himself, as he had many times before, we survive, we adapt, we reach out, and we show them who we truly are. Outside his chamber, Saraya stood silently, her thoughts deep and complex. The ancient texts, the small pendant, and the human before her had sparked something she had not felt in centuries. Doubt of old beliefs, curiosity about new possibilities, and the faint hope that perhaps a better path existed. And so, on that quiet night, a fragile understanding began to form between two very different species. A human captain and an alien commander, bound by curiosity, courage, and the weight of history, started down a path that could reshape the future. The revelation had begun, and with it the possibility of peace, a chance to show that even in war, understanding and trust could prevail. Captain Arik Vale had never faced a challenge like this. He was no longer merely a prisoner. He was a human ambassador in enemy territory, relying on a fragile trust with Commander Siraya. Every word he spoke, every gesture he made, could tip the balance between survival and catastrophe. And yet he felt a cautious hope. Siraya's curiosity about humans and the symbol of his necklace had opened doors no force of arms could have ever achieved. That morning, Siraya summoned Arik to the bridge of her ship. The chamber was vast, glowing with soft blue light, and filled with Zetherians moving with a precision that was almost mesmerizing. Arik could see the smaller fighters docked along the sides of the massive vessel, ready for combat at a moment's notice. "You requested my presence," Arik said. His voice steady, though his mind raced. Siraya turned, her amber eyes locking on his. "I did. You will assist me today." Arik raised an eyebrow. "Assist you? In what way?" She gestured to a large display of star systems, fleets, and energy signatures. "I am preparing a report for the Council. They will soon demand that the war continue, but I want to offer them another perspective. Your knowledge of human strategy, human reasoning, and human values could make the difference." Arik took a deep breath. "So you want me to help you show your people that humans are more than just warriors?" "Yes," she said simply, "but carefully. The Council is strict. They value strength above all. If we present humans as weak, they will reject your argument. If we present humans as clever, resourceful, and worthy of trust, perhaps they will listen." Arik studied the display. Zetherian tactical reports, fleet movements, and energy reserves were all shown in perfect detail. "I can help," he said cautiously. "We need to show them both capability and honor. Humans survive because we adapt, not because we conquer. If we highlight our strategic thinking, our ability to cooperate, and our resilience, it may work." Siraya nodded. "Good. Then we begin." For the next several hours, Arik and Siraya worked side by side. He explained human military tactics, emphasizing flexibility, improvisation, and ethical decision-making. Siraya listened carefully, asking questions that revealed her sharp mind and her willingness to reconsider old assumptions. Together, they crafted a presentation for the Council that combined facts, history, and strategy, along with the symbolic weight of the necklace. As they worked, Arik noticed subtle changes in Siraya's demeanor. She was less rigid, more thoughtful, and increasingly willing to consider alternatives to outright war. He realized that the small trust they had built was growing into something more powerful, a shared understanding that their collaboration could prevent unnecessary bloodshed. But the moment of progress was interrupted by a sudden alert. A smaller Zetherian vessel was approaching the human base on Vetra 9. The humans were unaware of the advanced fleet closing in, and Arik felt a pang of worry. He knew that if the humans were attacked, countless lives could be lost before any peace could be established. "We must act," he said urgently. "If they attack the humans before the Council even hears our report, it could be catastrophic." Siraya's eyes narrowed. "I will intervene, but subtly. My authority is limited. If I act too openly, the Council may see me as insubordinate." Arik understood. "Then we need a diversion, something that protects the humans but doesn't draw full attention to us." Together, they devised a plan. Using the ship's advanced technology, Siraya rerouted energy signatures, creating the illusion that the Zetherian vessel was being called back for repairs. Meanwhile, Arik sent subtle warnings to the human base, alerting them to the incoming threat without revealing the source. The plan worked. The human base prepared defenses and evacuated non-combatants while the Zetherian vessel retreated under the guise of technical issues. Arik felt a surge of relief. For the first time, he realized that cooperation with Siraya could save lives, not just offer hope but achieve tangible results. After the immediate danger passed, Siraya turned to him. "You have influence, Captain. Perhaps more than I expected. Your understanding of humans combined with my authority has made this possible." Arik shook his head. "It's not just me. It's the trust we've built. Without your willingness to listen, none of this would have worked." She studied him quietly. Trust is rare in war, yet here we have it. Perhaps this is the beginning of something more. Days passed, and the bond between them strengthened. Arik continued to share knowledge, not only of human strategy, but of human culture, ethics, and history. He showed Saraya examples of human ingenuity, courage, and resilience in the face of impossible odds. In turn, she revealed Zetherian methods of organization, resource management, and tactical planning, always careful to balance transparency with caution. Their collaboration began to bear fruit. Saraya, using Arik's guidance, started to influence minor decisions among her peers. She prevented unnecessary attacks on human supply lines, subtly repositioned forces to minimize casualties, and even authorized small acts of mercy for prisoners. Each action was a risk, but each action also demonstrated the possibility of a different path. A path where humans and Zetherians could coexist without endless war. One afternoon, while reviewing fleet movements, Saraya spoke quietly. "Captain, I sense that your people have a principle we do not always understand. You call it honor. Even in the midst of battle, you consider ethics, morality, and consequences. Why?" Arik thought for a moment. "Because survival alone is not enough. Humans fight to protect, to build, to continue their legacy. Strength without purpose is empty. Honor gives meaning to survival." Saraya considered this, her gaze distant. "Perhaps this is what I have been missing. Perhaps strength without understanding is meaningless." Arik nodded. "Exactly. That's why we can survive wars and still remain human. And that is why we can teach your species to see humans differently." Their progress, however, was not without challenges. Some Zetherian officers began to question Saraya's decisions. Rumors spread about her unusual leniency toward humans, and whispers of disobedience reached the higher council. Arik sensed the tension growing. One wrong move could undo all they had accomplished. "Commander," he said one evening, "I can feel your peers growing suspicious. We need a plan to protect the progress we've made and to show the council that humanity is not a threat." Saraya's amber eyes glimmered. "Yes. We must tread carefully. I will present the proof, the history, and the strategic reasoning to the council. But timing is crucial. We must show results before they doubt our intentions." Arik leaned back, considering the possibilities. "Then we need to prepare. If the council sees that humans are capable, honorable, and valuable allies, perhaps they will listen. But if we fail, the war will continue. We must be precise." Saraya nodded. "Precision is our strength. Together, Captain, we may succeed where others have failed. The council may not understand now, but with your guidance, we can show them that war is not the only path." Arik smiled faintly. For the first time in the long, chaotic war, he felt a real possibility of change. The necklace around his neck felt heavier, not with weight, but with responsibility. It had brought attention to humanity's history, but now it symbolized something more: hope, courage, and the chance for understanding. That night, as the ship sailed silently through the stars, Arik reflected on the strange twists of fate that had brought him here. A simple pendant, passed down through generations, had captured the attention of a powerful alien commander. Conversations, trust, and careful reasoning had begun to influence decisions that could prevent mass destruction. He looked out at the alien stars, thinking of his squadron, the humans on Vetra 9, and the countless lives at stake. "We survive. We adapt. We reach out," he whispered to himself. "And we show them what humanity truly is." Saraya, standing nearby, listened quietly. She did not comment, but in her amber eyes Arik saw the spark of possibility. Perhaps this human, fragile yet unbroken, could change not only the council's perception, but the fate of countless worlds. The days ahead would be difficult. The council would demand proof, and other Zetherians would resist change. Yet for the first time Arik felt that with courage, reasoning, and careful collaboration, there was a chance for something remarkable. Peace. And so, in the quiet hum of the Zetherian vessel, a fragile alliance began to take shape. A human captain and an alien commander, working together to prove that understanding, trust, and respect could triumph over fear and war. Tomorrow, the council would convene. Tomorrow, the true test of their alliance would begin. But tonight, hope lived. The day had come. Captain Arik Vale stood at the center of the Grand Council chamber aboard the Zetherian flagship, a place of authority and judgment that few humans had ever seen. The walls shimmered with soft blue light, and the air was filled with the quiet hum of energy flowing through the ship. Around him stood Commander Soraya and the Zetherian Council, their amber eyes glowing with scrutiny. Every movement, every glance seemed precise and calculated, a constant reminder of the stakes. Arik straightened, feeling the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. The council would not easily accept his words. They had been taught to see humans as aggressive, unpredictable, and dangerous. Yet here he was, a single human captain, armed only with courage, reasoning, and the symbol of humanity's long-forgotten promise, the necklace on his chest. Soraya stepped forward first, her presence commanding silence. "Council members," she said, her voice steady. "We have reached a moment where understanding can prevail over conflict. Captain Arik Vale, a representative of humanity, has brought forth evidence that our perception of humans is incomplete. Their history, courage, and capacity for honor deserve recognition." Murmurs filled the chamber. Some Zetherians exchanged skeptical glances. One of the senior generals, a tall, imposing figure, spoke sharply. "Soraya, have you forgotten the lives lost in this war? Humans are cunning, yes, but dangerous. We cannot risk their influence over our decisions." Soraya's amber eyes met his. "I have not forgotten, but courage, intelligence, and history are not threats, they are opportunities. We have seen what Captain Vale can offer. Strategic insight, loyalty, and honor. If humanity is guided wisely, they can be allies, not enemies." Arik stepped forward, holding the small necklace over his chest. "Members of the council," he began, his voice clear and calm. "I know you see humans as warriors, as unpredictable and dangerous. But this is not the whole truth. My ancestors carried this symbol across the stars to show that humans can be trusted, that we seek understanding, not just victory. We fight, yes, but we fight for survival, for protection, and for the future of our species, and potentially yours." He paused, letting his words sink in. "War is easy. Peace is harder. But history proves that cooperation between species can create strength beyond what any single race can achieve. I am here not to challenge you, but to offer evidence that humans are worthy of trust. The necklace I carry is a reminder of that promise. It is proof that our kind can rise above conflict when guided by courage, reason, and honor." A silence followed. The council members shifted uncomfortably. Arik could see doubt flicker in some eyes, suspicion in others. Yet there was also curiosity, a hint that his words, combined with Soraya's support, had begun to plant a seed of change. One of the generals leaned forward. "You speak with confidence, human. Yet words alone do not change perception. How can we be certain your kind will not betray us if given the chance?" Arik met the question with calm honesty. "Because we understand consequence. Because we have survived challenges that required more than brute force. And because my actions, and those of my ancestors, demonstrate a history of reason and cooperation. You have seen me prevent attacks, advise on strategy, and work with Commander Soraya to save lives. That is not the behavior of a species unworthy of trust." Another council member, a female Zetherian with silver-tinted skin, studied him silently. "And this necklace?" she asked finally. "It is a symbol, yes, but symbols are fragile. How can one object sway the judgment of a council that has fought humans for decades?" Arik smiled faintly. "It is more than a symbol. It represents a promise, a lesson from history, and a reminder that every species has the potential to rise above fear and hatred. If this object can open even a single mind, it can prevent war. Saraya's voice interrupted the murmur. The human is correct. We have relied on fear and assumption for too long. History shows us that humans have capabilities beyond what we acknowledge. They are resilient, honorable, and capable of forming bonds that can benefit both our species and theirs. The council remained silent for a long moment. Arik felt tension grip him like a physical force. Every heartbeat felt loud in the quiet chamber. Then slowly, the oldest member of the council, a Zetherian with deep green skin and a crown-like crest, spoke. Perhaps it is time to reconsider. Perhaps our judgment has been clouded by tradition and fear. Humans may be capable of more than destruction. If this Captain Vale and Commander Saraya are correct, then war may not be inevitable. A ripple of surprise passed through the chamber. Arik felt a surge of hope. He knew that this was only the beginning. The council would not immediately embrace peace, but the door had been opened. Saraya stepped closer to him. Your courage and honesty have carried you far, Captain. Together, we may succeed where others would fail. Arik nodded. It is not courage alone, Commander. It is trust. We must show them that cooperation is stronger than conflict. The council continued to deliberate, debating quietly among themselves. Arik and Saraya waited patiently, understanding that change, especially on this scale, required careful thought. Hours passed, and the tension in the room slowly shifted, from hostility to cautious consideration. Finally, the oldest council member spoke again. We call a ceasefire. All aggressive actions toward humans will halt immediately. Negotiations will begin. Humans may present evidence of their capability, honor, and intentions. We will judge them by deeds, not assumptions. A murmur of surprise and relief filled the chamber. Arik felt a weight lift from his chest. He glanced at Saraya, who allowed herself a small, rare smile. You see, Captain, she said softly. History can guide us if we are willing to listen. Arik held the necklace tightly. And courage can open doors that fear closes, he replied. Outside the chamber, the Zetherian fleet shifted subtly. Commands were sent to halt attacks. Ships returned to neutral positions, and the humans on Vetra 9 received cautious but clear signals that the war had stopped. For now. Lives were saved and a fragile hope had been established. Over the following days, Arik worked closely with Saraya to prepare for formal negotiations. Humans demonstrated their honor, ingenuity, and strategic thinking. Zetherians saw the benefits of cooperation, and slowly suspicion gave way to cautious respect. The necklace remained with Arik, a symbol of the trust and history that had made this progress possible. Saraya, once rigid and unquestioning, began to advocate more openly for humans. She leveraged the trust and respect that Arik had helped her build to influence other Zetherian leaders. Together, they proved that understanding, reason, and courage could achieve what war never could. As formal negotiations commenced, Arik reflected on the journey that had brought him here. From the battlefield of Vetra 9 to the halls of the Zetherian Council, he had faced danger, uncertainty, and doubt. Yet, through courage, careful reasoning, and trust, he had created a chance for peace. He looked down at the necklace resting against his chest. It was no longer just a family heirloom, it was a bridge between two worlds, a reminder that even the smallest objects could hold the greatest meaning. It had started as a symbol of human history, and now it represented the possibility of a shared future. Saraya approached him, her expression thoughtful. Captain, I must admit, I doubted humans at first. But now I see that your species has something rare: honor, courage, and a willingness to rise above conflict. Perhaps one day our peoples will not only coexist but thrive together. Arik smiled. That is all I hope for. That is all humanity has ever hoped for. To survive, to adapt, and to show that even in war, We can choose understanding over destruction. The Council formally called off the war. Orders were sent to halt attacks and diplomatic channels were opened. Humans and Zetherians began to communicate, sharing knowledge, technology, and culture. It was not perfect. Suspicion remained, and the wounds of conflict would take time to heal. But the first steps had been taken. Arik was released as a representative of humanity in the negotiations, with Soraya as his Zytherian counterpart. Together, they worked to build a framework of trust, proving that courage, respect, and understanding could prevent unnecessary bloodshed. And as he held the small necklace one last time, Arik understood the truth of its legacy. It was not just a symbol of the past, it was a key to the future. A reminder that even in the darkest moments, humanity could shine, inspire, and create hope where none seemed possible. The stars outside the ship glimmered, indifferent yet beautiful, as if witnessing the dawn of a new era, an era where humans and Zetherians could rise above fear, embrace courage, and choose cooperation over war. Captain Arik Vale smiled, feeling the weight of history and the promise of the future. Humanity had survived. Humanity had adapted. Humanity had reached out. And in doing so, they had shown the Zetherians, and perhaps the universe, that even in the vast, cold expanse of space, courage, honor, and understanding could light the way. For the first time in decades, the galaxy felt a little smaller, a little warmer, and full of possibility.